Good morning or good afternoon, or basically depends on where you're based. So welcome to this Ask Me Anything. If you're connected, first of all, thank you to be here. So if you're connected from any social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, whatever you're coming from, say hi. Just mention where you're coming from. That would be interesting to see where you are actually coming from. That would be great. So I'm currently sitting here in south of France. So welcome everyone from south of France. But for this series of Observatory Clinic that we already started a few weeks ago, we are covering specific topics related to the new platform capabilities that we provide and that we announced during our Dynatrace before. And today, as you saw the title, we are going to talk specifically about analytics without boundaries. So if you've been if you did probably your homework and if you paid attention, last week Andreas Grabner did an observatory clinic dedicated to that topic, which is analytics without boundaries. So we are going to focus mainly on that item today. And to cover that topic properly, I'm not alone. I have some friends with me. So I have Brian Chandler with me. So hi, Brian. How are
Hey,
you?
how you doing, Henrik? Good.
Yeah.
Good,
Very
good.
good. So you are connected from the shiny states of Florida.
Yes, I'm fending off alligators outside right now. Beaming in from Tampa, Florida. That's right.
And similar to the previous Ask Me Anything session that we did 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I don't remember, 2 minutes. I also have another friend, so it's Rob Jahn. So hi, Rob.
Hey guys, great to see you again. Really excited about today. So yeah, I'm coming in from Boston, Massachusetts, in the United States.
So I was wondering last time you were basically connected from Europe. So now you are back in the States.
That's right. Yeah, no, it's I went to go visit our European headquarters, if you will, in Austria. So it was great. A lot of our product management works there. So a lot of that knowledge we're going to share with you guys today, just to kind of build upon all the announcements that were done in Las Vegas at the Perform conference. Yeah, about I think 2 months ago. Yeah, in February.
All right. So for those who've been connected to the previous Ask Me Anything, we covered lots of different uh, components and features from the new platform. So we walk through the platform and showing you the notebooks, the dashboards, the workflow, lots of exciting things, and we had a lot of questions. So just to remind you that you have 1 hour with us. Don't be shy. This session is for you. So just let you know if you have specific questions related to the topic of analytics, which is going to cover specifically dashboards and notebooks. So if you have any questions about DQL or anything, just drop your questions and we will take the time to answer the questions. So to start this session, I think it makes sense to remind the all the content that has been presented during the last Observatory Clinic with Andreas Grabner. Rob, could you remind us what is a notebook, what is a dashboard, and differences, and maybe also remind us the different features that is covered with the new platform?
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, so this is great. So I think, between the three of us today, between some knowledge around what the customers are doing, and a lot of this analytics is around bringing data into Dynatrace. So a lot of our partner, whether it's a cloud partner like AWS, Azure, Google, or Red Hat, or whether it's other ecosystem partners, bringing data into Dynatrace and being able to open up new analytics use cases is really what we're talking about today. And it ties into this series that what we call the observability clinics. These are run according to the schedule. And so they're also an opportunity to get demos and see different guests. Andy Grabner is leading this effort. And these can all be rewatched on the YouTube channel of Dynatrace. And you can sign up and see them live and interact with the folks, in these upcoming sessions. And so it all ties into the theme that we did at the Perform conference. So what we're calling is our next generation platform, which has been rolling out. It started in November with logs and business events on top of our new data store called Grail. And what's coming out, GA in the Q2 of this year is a new UI, the dashboards, notebooks, applications that can run inside the Dynatrace platform. And one of those applications is like a workflow. So now a powerful workflow to really drive and have bidirectional integrations tied into all the modules within Dynatrace. So today we're going to be drilling in a bit on just the analytics. So that's going to focus on dashboards and notebooks. And we're going to explain what each of these are and do demos throughout it. So please, this is Ask Me Anything. So please drop the questions. We'll stop and pause and take the direction from you guys and what you want to see. But just if you're new to Dynatrace, we just walk you through the architecture of Dynatrace, and you can really read this from the left to right. So really bringing in metrics, traces, and logs is the three pillars of observability. But what Dynatrace is doing is bringing in the missing pieces, the topology which it runs on, the user behavior or the end user, either it's a mobile app or or a browser-based application. What is the code doing as it's executing? And being able to tie that into other types of security information, which you see on the bottom. So a big part of Dynatrace is being to do runtime, application protection, runtime, vulnerability analysis, being able to see what the code is doing as it's executing. And that all feeds into through a variety of mechanisms, whether it's our one agent, an API, coming in through open source technologies, which is where Henrik. So definitely if you have open telemetry type questions or using Fluent Bit or Fluent D, those types of technologies, Henrik's here and can answer those types of questions as it pertains to loading it all into our data warehouse and then doing the analytics as we go along. So Grail is the heart of Dynatrace now. So all of the metrics, traces, logs, everything is going to be in this new data store. And it's opened up, if you see on the right, through a common querying language and exposed to all of these things that we're going to show, like notebooks and dashboards, to open up these variety of use cases. So as I mentioned, Grail, kind of the heart. So we're going to Brian's going to dive right into Grail and the query language right away. But these features have been new since November. So bringing in logs at large volumes, petabytes a day, this is now possible because we have a very massively scalable parallel processing SaaS solution for doing log ingest. Business events, we're going to demo that today. If you're not familiar with that, that's another way to have essentially business type transactions that aren't tied or coming in necessarily from an agent. So this could be order processing. This could be like, airline kiosks, that type of data that could be coming in to be more transactional to get business use cases. And then as we're rolling out Grail as part of the GA timeframe, all the metrics that are in Dynatrace will be exposed in Grail, quickly followed by the traces. And so this is all feeding into the two analytics solutions that we're going to talk about today. So we have dashboards, which everyone's probably familiar with, but we've done a lot of enhancements to the way we could do visualizations, and then they're now powered by this Dynatrace query language. So the use cases around this is really when you figure out the data you want, you're kind of wanting live updates, kind of traditional dashboards, sharing that type of data. That's what a dashboard is, right? Familiar with that. But then notebooks, this is a new concept in Dynatrace. So when you think about analytics, I'm exploring data. I want to collaborate. I need to research a problem. I want to understand what my data is before I maybe put it on a dashboard, or I just want to do some ad hoc analysis and share those results in a real rapid manner. That's the real power of the notebooks. So with that, I'm going to transition it over to Brian because I think you want to see it rather than me show these slides. So that's kind of the end of the slides. So Brian, if you want to take it away and kind of show them what the UI looks like and show them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let me share my screen here for you guys. So yeah, thanks for joining everyone. So, and thanks Rob for teaming me up there. So yeah, I want to jump into notebooks first and really kind of do a refresher on DQL specifically, because at the end of the day, that's what all this analytics is going to be powered by. And like Rob said, I want to stress, it's not just logs, not just events. Everything that Dynatrace, that you know, all the telemetry types that you know and love within Dynatrace will be part of Grail. Traces and metrics are coming very shortly this coming quarter. So tentatively time frame right now. So you'll be able to see that very soon. And then, yeah, so what we're looking at here is just, I want to run through a situation where, let's say I'm some sort of analyst or work in an organization and we just had some big sale. Rob and Henrik and I are great business people, and we put on a big sale. We bought a big billboard. So we want to see, hey, are people visiting our website and actually hitting our product pages, and what were they doing? So what's great about notebooks is that you can do that kind of ad hoc analytics, like you're saying. And then once you kind of flesh out what you're looking for, you can then kind of go into more of a dashboarding type view, which Rob will show you here shortly. So this little story I just told here in a notebook. So what I always like to do when I try to start analyzing data is, sometimes you're not even sure what you want to look for yet, right? You might have somebody come to you and say, hey, I need you to do a report, and how did we do in our systems last night, or how did our sale do last night? So first, what I love to do is actually just kind of summarize, okay, what kind of log sources in this case, or what data sources do I have available, and which were the most interesting looking ones? So I did a quick summarize here by using DQL, just by the log source. You can see here it's pretty straightforward here. And basically I get a nice little table here summarizing the count of records by log source here. So this kind of just gives me a quick at a glance view of like, okay, what do I want to actually start looking at? And I notice here we got our front end access logs for our e-commerce site here. And it's got like 900,000 records in it. So, I'm going to just kind of take a guess and say that's going to be kind of where my interesting stuff is. But with the notebook, what's cool is you can kind of duplicate sections and kind of build out your data analysis story as you go along here. So what I did is I duplicated the section and said, okay, great. I figured out that I want the front end access logs. In this case, what I did is we can comment out certain lines in my query, and I quickly just clicked on that source here and added it as a filter. So it's very easy and interactive to add what you need to in your DQL. Just very easy, click and go. And then now I'm actually seeing kind of the raw data of these access logs that I'm looking at here. Now, one thing I really wanted to point out here is these are all individual records. And what's nice about the notebooks is they'll quickly understand, okay, what fields do you have to work with on the left-hand side in this case? So I can interactively go in and drill in and filter out and add different records. And context is king as well, too. And one of the great things about what Dynatrace brings to the table is its Smartscape technology. So any of the records that it finds, or any of the field that it finds in these log records, for example, say, this process entity that this log is associated with, you can drill right into the process overview and the infrastructure view in that case as well. So Dynatrace at its core, it's all stored within Grail, but we have that Smartscape that's putting together the topology and dependency map. And because we have that, it's not just logs that we're working with here. We have logs in context with everything else. You can drill into the host, you can drill into the traces that are associated with it. So just want to do a quick note here with that. One thing that I wanted to do, go ahead.
Yeah, I got some question because I don't know if it's only on my end, because but to make sure everyone doesn't have the same experience, but it's a bit blurry as of now. So maybe just to recap, to build a DQL, Brian, there are a few functions. So I saw we saw briefly fetch. So what is fetch doing, and what are the different data that you can fetch as of now?
Yeah, so fetch is like kind of the base sort of command in DQL that you'll start kind of when you start asking your data questions. So you can go fetch logs to maybe go fetch some log data. You can do fetch events to get biz events and events. You'll also be able to do fetch traces and metrics as well, and all the rest of the telemetry that you could think of. You could also fetch individual entities within the Smartscape and Dynatrace as well, and then from there you can refine and build out a DQL query by adding filters down to what types of entities or log sources you want to do. You can actually manipulate the data, and then hopefully if the folks can start to see a little bit here, kind of what I was doing next up was exactly that. I was taking a look at this log record, and if you can see it or not, basically there's some content that's being logged about what's being hit on our website. And really it's just sort of a big mess, because in this case, what happened was, our admins, me as the app team, forgot to tell our admins that, hey, we need to put up a processing pipeline for our logs. But the beautiful thing about Grail and Dynatrace DQL is you can do this on the fly massaging and manipulating of the raw log data without having to have all the processing pipelines, the log processing pipelines built ahead of time. We can still do that. Yeah, go ahead.
So it means that if I see here from the screen the content where you see cluster, host name,
exactly,
there was different things, which means now we are able to parse it on the fly and have new keys or new attributes that we can filter later on. Correct?
Exactly. So that's what I did here. So there's just really powerful parse functionality within DQL, what I'm highlighting right here. And in this case, what I'm doing is I'm saying, hey, grab that content that you see. In this case, we have a built-in JSON parsing function that'll recognize automatically, in this case, JSON content. It could be just any kind of other unstructured log content as well, but this case is just JSON, just to keep it a little bit simple here. And basically what it'll do is on the fly, on read, create and parse out fields for that content. Again, I mean, this is great and be powerful for teams that, want to do that ad hoc analysis of kind of unknown unknowns that they didn't know they would need ahead of time, right? Or maybe they forgot to build a complex processing pipeline of this data. With DQL, you can easily access this data that you need to. So in this case, that's what I did. Now we're starting to get some data that makes sense. We're getting some response times, we're getting some messages, we're getting some product pages. So next, what I wanted to do is kind of create them into friendly named fields in this case. And what DQL will allow you to do is manipulate and add first-class citizens type fields. So in this case, I kind of renamed them to, method, path, response time. So that's great. So now we took basically this raw log data, that it wasn't very useful to us from an analytics standpoint. And with DQL, just with just a very simple command here with a couple of lines, really started making this data useful to us. We're getting session ID, all that stuff. Next, I wanted to add an additional filter that just grabbed out, the events that were 200 OK status codes. That mean the customer actually, went to these product pages or went to these pages in this example. And then what I wanted to do is summarize and start visualizing this data. So next is I say, okay, well, I just want to know what my popular product pages were during our sale. So I added a filter that just said, show me the product pages and summarize them by the count of hits on each product page. So now I can start to see, quickly at a glance, okay, during our sale time, what our most popular products were and was our sale effective. And now finally, you can start visualizing it. And actually start doing things with this data and building out, very rich reports that you can send off to folks here. And that's what I did here is you can easily with add visualizations. It's highly interactive. We'll even suggest different types of visualizations to go with, based on the queries. That's kind of one of the things that we'll do to help you with the analytics. In this case, I did an area chart, but you can do all sorts of other things as well. We'll even recommend some visualizations in that case. But that was kind of the quick refresher, on DQL and kind of notebooks in general there.
So,
yeah,
Ryan, question to you. So if I'm building that query, so the notebook we see we are querying are the data available in Dynatrace, but is that data going to be refreshed every X seconds? So then for some reason I'm losing that visualizations, or will it be kept in memory until I hit replay on the query?
So yeah, that's a great thing that these notebooks are kind of their own sort of encapsulated objects. So notebooks are great to be kind of have as almost artifacts that you can, static artifacts that you can sort of keep, you can copy, you can use them for kind of ad hoc analysis. If you want to rerun and refresh the data, absolutely. You just kind of click on a section here and rerun the query. But you can also take these, download them, ship them, share them to your teams and kind of keep them because the data that you queried here is persisted in the notebook, right? And the notebook is meant to be, kind of exactly what the name is, essentially used as sort of like a notebook that you can use to kind of write down what kind of data story you want to do, and then keep that or store it or share it. Yep.
And so, so you showed us an example with logs. I guess we have the ability to build DQL on notebook, but do we have any other options? What can we do? Query? Are we able to run external code, or to add any extra elements to the notebook? What are the various features offered by the notebook?
Absolutely. So, I mean, you could do all sorts of complex things with it. So, again, within Grail and with DQL in general, that was just a log example. But we have all the different telemetry types within Dynatrace: the Smartscape, the metrics, the traces, the events. So, in this example here, and this is seen, you can see it gets a little bit more complex in this case. Is I have a DQL that's actually using our lookup functionality in this case, and this is where you can sort of do a query within a query and marry different data types together within Grail. And then I also have an external data source example. I'll show you too there, Henrik. But in this case, what we're doing is we're fetching, in this case, biz events, and we're searching events that are a certain type and then splitting them by, in this case, the host that they're associated with. Again, because Dynatrace has that underlying dependency model, that Smartscape that it's monitoring as well, that entity model. So we're able to kind of discern the events from a contextual standpoint. And then what we want to do is actually basically enrich that query with log data that's also sitting in Grail. So we can run a quick lookup command, fetch logs, summarize it by the error count, and then also split that by the host entities that are there. So what's happening here is we're taking log data and we're taking biz event data, which classically would be in different data silos, right? And maybe you'd have to run some complex code or logic to understand that these two things are associated with each other. But because we have that full context, we know that these logs are associated with these biz events because they're tied to the same host in the entity model. So ultimately what we're able to do is marry, in this case, log errors with biz events split by different hosts, right? And again, it's all tied together within that entity model. So it's really, really important there to understand. It's really powerful with why Dynatrace is a bit different there. Here's another more complex example here. We're actually querying directly a host entity, right? Filtering down by a specific host, and then doing a couple of lookups that are marrying together event and log data in there as well. We also have metric data. So I have an example here where we're querying metrics within Grail, and we're unlocking the power of Davis and actually allowing for forecasting of the different metrics that we might be collecting within Dynatrace. And then we also have the ability to bring in external data. So in this case, what we're doing is we're fetching internal metrics about what we're collecting with the Dynatrace One agent across our various EC2 instances within AWS in this case. And then we're filtering or splitting them by the different teams that they're assigned to, because we'll automatically enrich the AWS tags with what Dynatrace is collecting with. And then what's really neat is what Dynatrace can do is you can actually run JavaScript code, like literally just drop JavaScript code if you want in this case, right in a notebook. And in this case, what we're doing is we're actually calling out to the Amazon pricing price book and actually pulling down the price rates of the different models of EC2s, and then ultimately pulling that together with the data. Go ahead.
Yeah, we have a small question about external code from Andrew. So Andrew asked you, it was a few minutes ago. So he was interested in running Python code. So you mentioned JavaScript too. So at the moment, the code only supports JavaScript, I guess.
Yeah, it's JavaScript right now. I don't know if we have any plans to support any kind of, like Python or anything like that. But yeah, just right now, the plan is just JavaScript, TypeScript at the moment. Yep.
There's another questions from LinkedIn user. I don't see the name. So hi, LinkedIn user. So it says, is the notebook feature available for installed version? Do we need to upgrade the installation? I think
great
Rob
question.
barely mentioned that. So what is how can our community take advantage of this new platform? Because LinkedIn user, sorry to name you like this, but a LinkedIn user, it's this is not, it's a new platform with providing new capabilities. So here, this is an app called Notebooks, And this notebook is actually possible because we have added in our new platform an app engine. So with the apps, we're able to build new apps. So when can our users take advantage of that?
Yeah, I mean, this is what I kind of showed earlier in the call. So we are going general availability with all the things that we're showing today in the plan for Q2 of this year. So you have some, and the platform itself is only offered on SaaS. So the whole Grail data store, all the new UI is a SaaS only option.
So the important thing here, if you are a Dynatrace SaaS customer, you're just going to get this, right? So like that, if that's you won't have to like install or buy a new, licensing or anything. You will get the new Dynatrace experience as a Dynatrace SaaS customer, sometime in the next coming month or two. So look forward to it. You're gonna get this, very shortly with that. Yep.
Andrew McGuire asked another questions, which I like because it's when you use sometimes external code, you get some data. For example, you show us the example of the price rates. So I want to have the data, and then maybe I want to on the fly calculate the price, so then I can reach out to the actual usage of my host on Amazon and then apply that rate. So basically combining external code and DQL at the same time. So so is that possible? How is it possible, by the way?
Maybe I can. I don't know if Brian, your screen's a little blurry, but maybe I can.
Yeah, maybe you can
that on my screen real quick. I have that same example that you're looking at, and maybe this will answer Brian's question. So, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we are.
Okay,
perfect. Yeah.
So this is kind of zooming in on that function. Maybe I'll make it a little bigger for folks to see. So this is inside of one of these notebooks Brian was explaining. So when you're working with a notebook, you have the ability to have a section within the notebook that's based just purely on Grail, the queries language, or you can add these serverless functions, which are written in JavaScript, TypeScript, or you can do just annotations through the course of like adding a markdown. That's where you can see like a label, like this on part of the page. But in this example, you can see part of being TypeScript, Dynatrace has an SDK that allows us to both interact with the Dynatrace API, or actually the Dynatrace platform, not the API, but the SDK is going directly in here. So you can see fetch metrics, which is all in the syntax of Dynatrace query language, fetch metrics, filter it, summarize. And now this is inside of a code object. And so now once I'm executing that query, I can now iterate through that, perform any logic I want to do, calculate a cost, kind of thing, and do that. And if you notice in this sort of demo example, the source of the data was just this static JSON file, which is sitting out here, in this case, just on an S3 bucket. So imagine if that was exposed, you have this, JSON type of data. You can see kind of your pricing in this case by EC2 instance type, and then you can derive that into a cost calculation. And so really that's the real power that you have, the ability to write custom code, derive your data, visualize it through the features of the notebooks, as well as dashboards. So the same thing will work on dashboards and notebooks. So hopefully it helped a little bit.
That was perfect. Thank you, Rob. There's another interesting question that we should probably answer, I think, is how is it different from multi-dimensional analysis? So this feature was, for those who's not aware, it's a feature that was available in our previous UI, in our previous platform. So Brian, Rob, what is the difference?
Yeah, I can chat to that, and you can add any color if you want, Rob. So multidimensional analysis was one just mainly based off of our metric store, our kind of legacy metric store. So that's kind of the one thing. And you could slice and dice the data and do a lot of pretty powerful things with it, and build some complex dashboard tiles with it. But the important thing is it's not powered by DQL. So it all kind of boils down to having the ability to ask your data any question you want and across any telemetry you want. So basically you would be able to slice and dice by different metric time series. You could make different attributes and things like that, but you couldn't ask questions about, okay, how did it relate to, traces X, Y, Z? How did it relate to or filter through on these specific events or things like that? So really with this is we're unlocking the ability for you to really take this high cardinality data across multiple data types, right? Not just metrics, but all the different telemetry types that you're collecting in your observability practice, and then being able to ask any question you need to using DQL. And that's kind of the big difference there. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add there, Rob.
Yeah, no, I think you covered it. I mean, I think that's where when you're doing, and that's really what the power of Grail itself is. When you have very high cardinality data, there's a penalty often, like with certain databases, to try to aggregate and group by that. So what we will find with Grail as you're executing it, it's designed to deal with just that kind of problem. Because think of like IP addresses in a log file. Think of like different custom status codes within an application. That's what we mean by high cardinality. There's an attribute that has many different distinct values across a large collection of data, and that's where you're wanting to do these group bys and pivot type of operations to say group it by status code, by region, by this, by that, by that. And you can do that to a degree with the metric analysis and the metric multidimensional analysis, but that, as Brian said, is limited to just metrics. So now I think Brian was starting to show some of those examples, but even with the logs, you could do something similar. You could say, here's this large, huge set of log data, but inside of my log is, a simple example is just the logging level. So let me group it by logging level. Let me group it by the production host in the logging level. Let me, drill into that and say, all right, show me the actual content of those error messages and group it by that. That type of analysis is what is opened up across not just metrics, but to logs and events and things like that.
Yeah, or I'm thinking more on the OpenTerm side as a use case, for example.
Yeah.
I want to look at all my spans and the duration. If they are above a certain level, then I want to look up on for example, on the pods where those spans are running to see, are there any high CPU usage on the pod or memory, or is there any throttling? So then I will have that data, and then I can say, okay, so for all those spans that are in that giving response times, we observed a high throttling on the pod, and that could explain why we have that. Again, we have Davis that should point it out, but it's just that you're basically you're having a situation, and then you want to do like analysis by yourself. So then you have the notebook where you can walk through the logic and the analysis and understanding on what is going to happening on the environment. So that's very exciting, I think.
Right, exactly.
Andrew asked another question. So Andrew, thanks a lot, Andrew, to asking all your questions. That's wonderful. So so the question is, so you wanted to make like a z-score function to add to DQL as an example. Looks like ingredients already in math functions of DQL. So I think you want to enrich the functions that are already there to do some extra stuff. And I think you also mentioned the other topic Andrew mentioned, it could be cool that the community could contribute back to those functions. As of now, those functions are mainly running in the core engine of the platform. So because when you run a query, it's running on the platform itself. So it's not running externally. So it's currently mainly managed by the Dynatrace R&D. But I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of interesting JavaScript code that could be more public and more general for any use cases that could be beneficial for everyone. I think it makes complete sense, Andrew. I think this is a good point. We should bring it up to our product manager and have it like a repo where our community can share a JavaScript code that could be useful for your notebooks and dashboards. So Brian, you showed us a lot of topics related to there's another questions before we jump to this my next aspect. So is it possible to improve Smartscape UI experience? So that's an interesting topic. So who wants to take that question?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I would, and then Rob, add anything that I might miss here. But yeah, we're actually going to have, as part of the new app framework, a fully developed and supported by Dynatrace Smartscape Health app with the new Dynatrace experience that you're going to get. So just keep an eye out for that. You will get something there, a fully kind of revamped new Smartscape experience with the new Dynatrace experience, and it will be an app called, I believe it's called the Smartscape Health app. And yeah, it'll be really exciting for you to get your hands on. And it'll be one of the apps that we develop and support.
Right.
In fact, there's a lot of different applications. So usually in the past, if you remember well, in the left menu, you have lots of entries for services, for metrics, for Smartscape, for hosts, for whatever logs. So those now are converted into apps. So as of now, there is like an options to have an iframe. Maybe Brian or Rob, if you can share us. For example, I want to see the I don't know, say the Kubernetes screen. So or the service screen. So there is currently an app where you will have an iframe showing you the previous UI in the new platform.
Yeah, I can quickly kind of show that here. So basically, if you go ahead and what's kind of neat about the new Dynatrace experience is you can either click the little search or apps button here. But I'm all about shortcuts, right? So I hit Command K because I'm on a Mac. So then I search what I want to do, and then you can basically search for whatever you're looking for. And like what Henrik and Rob said, basically it's all going to be a seamless experience with your previous Dynatrace experience. So as we build out apps in the new experience, to be able to go back to get available of some of those other views that you may be used to, you can certainly do that just by popping into search and then searching for that particular view. And basically it will be an app embedded within Dynatrace itself, and have just all this seamless kind of experience that you know and love with Dynatrace.
I mean, I would kind of call it's an evolution. So really, all the screens that were in Dynatrace are put into this basically wrappered UI. So the left-hand menu changes, and really the paradigm is changing from just only having a left-hand menu, if you remember Dynatrace, to now that each screen is considered an app. And then as we enhance Dynatrace and have new ways to represent the visualization of things, then those can be out of the box apps, or to also show you with the ability to install apps to your choosing. And then also part of the app framework is the ability for partners and customers to actually use the app framework to build custom applications. So that is the vision of Dynatrace, that we're giving you really a new platform to build applications, use cases, and through these tools that we're showing you, the notebooks and the dashboards, those are kind of core out of the box and analytics tools that also have some new features from the current Dynatrace that's out there.
Absolutely. And the important part here, I just want to add one last thing is it's really cool is that it's just seamless for you, the end user. Okay. So we're not asking you to, flip to a new platform, install a new platform or anything like that. It's going to be extremely seamless, the transition into the new Dynatrace experience, kind of giving you the best of both worlds, getting the new platform experience around the new apps that are being developed, but then also, transitioning from the old experience as well. So it'll be very seamless for all around. Go ahead, Henrik.
There's a question from one of our attendees. Will BDQL replace metric expressions regarding metrics in the future? And I think so. I may take part of the answer. Of course, Brian and Rob, you can jump in. But yeah, metric expression was great, but we had few limitations, especially if you we say I want to look at the use case where I am looking at spans or I'm looking at logs, then I want to add the data from a span or data from a host. With metric expression, we were not able to do that. So there will be like a new to fetch metrics or fetch time series. For us, it's time series. We have a similar function that you have experienced in the past with the metric expression, but with this notion of Grail metrics being in Grail, you have lots of exciting options where you're not limited to just the metrics dimension anymore. You can go further in exploring the data that is currently available in Dynatrace.
That's exactly right. Yeah. I mean, I think it's the evolution. So I think the current mechanisms to access data, user session queries, metric expressions, all the APIs, they're going to be there for a while, right? We're not, we know a lot of customers will take time sometimes to move to the new platform, if they're on a managed environment, for example. But we want to support things because a lot of things in Dynatrace, they will be there because that's what you use. And then what we're encouraging you to use is take advantage of the new features, because a dashboard that we're showing you today, as Brian and I have been showing you, is only based on DQL. So previous dashboarding at Dynatrace, depending on the tile that you added, had a different source of how to get that data. And so what we're trying to do now is unify it all. So people will be, and we're going to be providing some tools to help you, transform the logic that you had, give you some tips and best guidance to say, all right, if your metrics expression was like this is how we can construct an equivalency in the Dynatrace query language.
And I think it's exciting because it's just, we have now the toolings to correlate.
Yes.
Where we had to correlate visually in the past. Now we have the toolings to correlate through a query or through code, and that is super exciting, I think.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
We have another questions from our attendees. So it's can we use GCP BigQueries for the analysis? So I may ask the questions too, because it's for me it's unclear the use case. Are you asking us to run GCP BigQueries on the data, or you want to utilize data provided by BigQueries? So we just want, if you can respond it while we take that question, it will be great. So add more details so that we can provide the right answer to a use case. Just to remind you, there are actually currently GCP integrations where we will provide metrics from the various services provided by GCP, and BigQueries is one of them. So if you are looking to get the data of BigQueries and correlate it to existent data that we have in Dynatrace, the logs, the spans, the events, and so on, DQL will allow you, because from the moment the data has been ingested, in this case, it's going to be metrics, then you will be able to cross-correlate between the various signals. I think you mentioned second one, so you're thinking of, I want to use Dynatrace to basically send to query, to do some big queries. So I think I'm not 100% sure because I never did that use case, but I may imagine that there is like an API where you can run some big queries that you've defined. If that API is returning some JSON content, then you can imagine to build a notebook or even a dashboard later on that will run that JavaScript that will query your GCP to get the data from the BigQuery, and then you will cross-correlate with the DQL, like similar to the example that Rob showed us a few minutes ago.
Exactly. Yeah, drop some code in a notebook and then hit the BigQuery API to return that data for sure.
Hey, Henrik, I got a couple of things I can show real quick before we run out of time, if that's all right.
Yeah, sure, of course.
So,
go for it.
John, if you want to share my screen. So John dropped this link. You're seeing my screen now, okay?
Yes.
Yep.
So in the Dynatrace documentation, just to point this out, all of the Dynatrace query languages, the syntax, examples are all in the Dynatrace help doc. So you can search for Dynatrace query language. You should hit this page, but John shared the link. Also, just as a quickie to show just to visualize what Henrik was talking about, of being able to connect data together with DQL. There's sort of two examples here. So here I'm selecting a data type called business events and being able to summarize that information on it. And as you can see, basically counting these particular events, if it matches a certain criteria, grouping it by a Dynatrace host. So what host was running, what generated these particular events? And now think of this as a SQL join. We have a command called lookup. So now you're concatenating the results of this, give me a count of the events by host, but then connect it by looking up the logs that are now by that same host. And then you're joining them by the host fields from this result and from this result. So essentially you're joining two different data types together, all in the same Dynatrace query language statement. And this is what is all, that's what we're trying to explain with the capability that we have now. So when you compare that to the MDA or the metric expression language, all you're able to do is summarize and group by just on metrics. But here you can see I'm combining logs and events. In the second example, I'm combining a host with events and logs. So again, using that lookbook feature. So there's now a much more robust, kind of capability through the Dynatrace query language. I don't know if you guys want to add anything to that, but that's just
I mean, I think we covered pretty well. We cover mainly GQL and Notebook, and I think we touched base briefly dashboard. So can we maybe
let me show you that real
highlight
quick.
the value of dashboards?
All right, so you want to switch back to me again on the screen? You see this okay?
Yeah.
So I'm also in the
good.
Dynatrace UI, and we were talking about, this is, you have different visualizations now. You still have your left-hand menu. You can pin things. You can open, what you're recently opened, but you also have like different ways to launch applications. So if I go into a dashboard, I've made a couple examples, and I'll just kind of walk you through some of the features because people were asking about this. So similar to what you'd expect, you can choose the time frame in which your dashboard is running. You have multiple things you can do. So these are different visualizations of queries. And so let me just edit one to show you what's behind a query. So this just give me a fetch of the logs, count them, and then group them by one minute intervals. And then basically break it out by status. So when you think of like the MDA, that's similar to kind of what you're doing in there. It's time series data, breaking it out by different dimensions, and then you can visualize this kind of data. And then you can change the visualization you want to different things. So the charting is much more powerful in the new Dynatrace. So you can do bar charts, you can do line charts. That's sort of what you do for these individual tiles. So then you can also do what's called annotations. And again, the same thing is true for Notebook too. But when you're dealing with an annotation, you're basically working with markup text, which could have hyperlinks. You can change the size. You can see it dynamically changing on the right as I do this. And that allows you to add context. You can have an image. An image is just referring to maybe a static image itself. Or you can also have your image could be an animated image in this case. And then also kind of a powerful thing of dashboards is the ability to have add filters. So if you notice on the top, I've got this drop down warning error info. And as I change that, notice my graph on the bottom refreshes. Now I've got error and info happening. And I've also changed, if I add info, let me add a third one. And there we go. And so that's now changed. And if you notice in my markup, this text was also dynamically changing. So let me change it again, change it to error. And so that changed. And that's all possible through these variables that could be added into the environment. So here, the way I'm sorry, Henrik, you want to interrupt?
Yeah, I was going to ask, what are the variables you showed us? So you can see that. So what are the different way of building variables in your graphs?
Yeah. So here, so I'll just go ahead and click add a variable. So you can have your variables, which are can be used inside of queries. It could be an actual DQL query. So this could be, like we were showing before, fetch a distinct list of status codes. It could be a CSV, just hard-coded list that you put in here. So I can have, A, B, C. Let's do that one. Or I can have a code-driven one where I maybe reach out to another system, query it, and drive it, right? So then I just call this test, add the variable, and then you have that test as a type. And then this one here, this example was driven by a CSV code. So here, this was also hard coded in this example.
So how can I use this variable once I've built the variable, so I can see that it automatically appear as a filter in the top of the dashboard? But how can I use it in my queries?
Right, exactly. So if I go to this query, which we saw being edited, I edit it. And it's now that variable becomes the name that I call that variable can be right inside of like my filter criteria. So I'm saying fetch the logs where it's in this array of the selected status fields that I wanted to that I selected in my dropdown in this case, since I had a multi-select. And in the case of this annotation, as I was showing here before, that same variable can be referred to and it'll show up as a populated value here. So those are kind of two ways that you can control, and drive variables. So imagine the variable could be a list of data centers. The list could be actual list of host names, or it could be, in this case, these are error types. So you could build one-to-many filters and then drive your dashboards and give your users, ability to kind of self-service a little bit of ad hoc querying, because often dashboards are built and made read-only for most users, except for the author.
So we just to remind all the attendees, so we have 7 minutes before we end this live stream. So technically, I would say we have still 5 minutes left because we will do a minor conclusion. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to drop them in your Q&A feature of your social network, so LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, whatever. So we will take time to answer them. There is a question from I think it's again Mike. I think he was saying is it possible to schedule notebooks and have results delivered somewhere? So I think this is a great introduction for the next topic of the next Observatory Clinic of Andreas Grabner, which is automation without boundaries. And as we discussed before, Andrew, the new platform is based on an app engine where we have different applications. So the notebook is one, the dashboard is one, and then here we are currently seeing the one of the apps called the workflow app.
Oh, there you go. Sorry, I wasn't sure what you were saying. Okay, but yeah, that's exactly right. Sorry, I didn't know you were seeing my screen. But another app, let me just kind of go back. But another application that was introduced in Perform, just to show you, and this is a teaser, I guess, for what we'll show next time, is an application called Workflow. So this behind the scenes is powered by our automation engine. So even though this is an app that does this visual editing of workflows, embedded in the new platform is the ability to work on different types of triggers, and which would drive your application. So just to show you, as an example, things can be triggered like on demand. Things can be triggered when a Dynatrace problem is opened. To your question and in the audience, these workflows can be scheduled on a set time, like a cron job, like run it every 2 hours on a fixed time, date, on demand. These can be triggered from an API. So this mechanism of a workflow can be executed in quite a few ways. So in this case, I think this actually kind of your example. I'm going out in this flow to query some data, right? So my first step in my workflow is query some data using DQL. Maybe I want to get some additional host information, say, through code. And now I want to send my report out to my Slack team. So this is, combining now multiple things in the Dynatrace platform that really opens up kind of that use case that you're asking about.
The last question is from Ryanus. Oh, sorry, maybe I'm not spelling your name properly, but it's about: is there a way of migrating a tool that will migrate all our customers that has been built dashboards since many years using metric expression, and now they have to use DQL? So is that from my end? I'm not sure. Maybe Rob.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to get back to you on what the product team's planning. I mean, all I could say is, we know that we want people to use the new capability. We want to make that as easy as possible. And so, right, giving you guidance. So whether it will be an automated tool, I can't commit to say that that's what the plan is. But I think if you were able to share your information with us, we can certainly get you back an answer on that.
Yeah, sure, we'll do.
Yeah.
There's two questions, and then we will start concluding. So first is a question about Monaco. So can Monaco workflow be configured? That's an excellent question. So for those who never heard about Monaco is called Monitoring as Code. It's a tool that we provided since many years. It's a way of configuring Dynatrace. So it's a tool that is interacting with our configuration API. So you can create management zones, you can create SLO, you can create alerting, you can create other things. This use case, honestly, Sahil, it's interesting. I never thought about it. Brian or Rob, do you know if, I mean, having a workflow running by Dynatrace, reconfiguring Dynatrace, it seems quite a weird, but
well, I mean, it is kind of it's an interesting thing, but this, I would say, one is anything's possible in a way with automation. So certainly a workflow that we were showing you can call an external tool, right? So if you were to say have Jenkins as an example. So if you were to, you could have a workflow tool trigger a pipeline job, and in that pipeline job, you may have the execution of the configuration as code or a code deployment or things like that. And so you could achieve that use case, by using an automation. So a lot of automation makes, it has to make sense for what it's doing, but we built it in such a way that we're going to have, and this is kind of getting into the next session, but we'll have some predefined actions. We want to make it as flexible as possible. We want to be able to invoke code, be able to store the secrets for managing those connections, like that Slack example. So we have a feature that allows you to define teams in Dynatrace and define their communication channels in Dynatrace. So if that team number one uses the Slack channel, the automation, say on a Dynatrace problem, could say, hey, how is this? This is the responsible team. Go look up their Slack channel and then send them a message in this pre-formatted way per my workflow. So there's a lot of really cool automation use cases now, which is maybe a teaser for next session. But yeah.
So I think we always come to the end. So we have one last question. Is about the SaaS. So yes, to answer your questions, yes, we GCP is a target. So I'm not sure. I'm sure. I think you can also already have SaaS tenant on GCP.
But yeah, you can already have a SaaS tenant on GCP.
Yeah. But the Grail will be deployed in step by step,
later date
on the GCP users for sure.
Right. So that's fair. Yeah. I mean, that's the roadmap. So so it is a SaaS. Grail that we're talking about is on Grail, but it's initially offered hosted on AWS, and with the roadmap to port it over to additional hyperscalers. But from a SaaS standpoint, if it may not really matter where, and that's the beauty of SaaS. Like if we have multiple regions that will be close to you. And so with the SaaS model, that's where we know the industry's going, that people will store their logs in the cloud, they will store the data in the cloud with a trusted partner. And, so that's how we're rolling it out.
We have a lot of questions more on the workflow. So it seems that it brings a lot of interest, what we talked about. So I'm very excited about your questions. So thank you. I hope that this session was helpful for you. Just to remind you, today we talked mainly about analytics, so a notebook and dashboards, and we are going to soon have a dedicated observatory clinic about automation without boundaries. It's April the 13th. We know that there's a link if you're interested to listen to that new observatory clinic. You can already register. So April 13th, and the week after, we will have also an Ask Me Anything covering specifically the workflow, the automation. So for you seen that it brings a lot of questions. You have a lot of use case in mind. So that would be great if you think about use cases and then connect to the next Ask Me Anything, and we can talk about those use cases in details for sure. So I would like to thank everyone for being connected. We had lots of questions, lots of interaction for you. So I think this event was fun because of your interaction. So thanks for everyone to be asking questions. Otherwise, without questions and Ask Me Anything is a bit boring. And I will also thanks again, Brian and Rob, for your demo, your presentation. It was just amazing.
Yeah, thanks,
awesome.
Henrik. Thanks, everybody. I don't know if you I left the clinic series that you mentioned, Henrik, on the screen. There's a QR code just that makes it easy to find that. If you're watching this, you can just kind of use your phone to get that picture. And then also just as a plug, there's a lot of great reading on the topics Brian and I were talking about. Then this, that explain it, show screenshots, get deeper into the design out on our blog site. So that's another resource for you guys too.
Yep. So great. So if you want to learn more, check the blogs, or of course register to the next clinics. So I would like to thank everyone. Thanks our presenters, our guests, and our attendees for being here. I will of course, if you didn't have the chance to be connected for the entire session, don't worry. It's going to be recorded and available on YouTube in a few days. If you want to rewatch it, check YouTube. But thanks for being here. Thanks for watching, and see you soon for another Ask Me Anything with Brian and Rob. That was awesome. Thanks, guys.